I had a surveillance system hooked up in my house, and I saw the deputies coming when they were going to raid my house. And you know what? Actually, I took a deep breath and I said, thank you. I said, thank you, yes. This is going to sound very ignorant, but I never really knew that you could actually be in charge of your own mind. I was just living my life with allowing things to happen to me and me reacting.
Humans want to be good. They want to contribute. They want to be important in their communities. They just don't know how.
Unfortunately, a lot of parents are very sort of cowed by the bureaucracy of the authority figure of the school. And, whoa, you know, the teacher said we have to put little Joey on medication. Well, you know, no, question that. A teacher is not a physician.
More than 2 million Americans are in jail. Today we'll meet a woman who's trying to do something about that. Coach Mara Leigh Taylor is here from GOGI, Getting Out by Going In, a program she created to help turn around prisoners' life and keep them from becoming repeat offenders. And we'll meet one of her success stories, Maria Costa. After going to jail 5 times, now she's a GOGI coach herself. And then, is there a positive side to those ADHD-like symptoms your child has? We'll hear from Stephanie Vlahov, author of The Active Creative Child. But up first, Maria Costa. Pleasure to meet you, Maria.
Pleasure to meet you. Thank you for having me.
So you were in jail 5 times.
Yes, 5 times.
What happened?
Well, it came about just making the wrong decisions, doing the wrong things, hanging around with the wrong people. And I didn't know how to get out of it. So I found myself in jail 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. And I was actually on my way to prison.
Can I ask you, what did you do? What for the first time?
Well, for the first time, burglary, under the influence, quite a few of those. What else did I have? Receiving stolen property, and another under the influence. You know, that was always in there. The drugs and the alcohol was basically what
I
got
noticed
me.
that was something in Coach Mara, we're going to hear from later in her information that she sent me, said that a lot of times drugs are a part of...
Yes, it is. That's how I got started in my downward spiral, with the drugs and alcohol, most definitely.
And you had kind of a tough upbringing in East LA?
Yes, I did. I was separated from my mother at birth because she had to go herself do a prison sentence of 5 years. So I grew up without my mom. So I guess I kind of started emulating my mom and what I had heard about her.
So there was no contact at all with her?
No, not until I was 5 years old. And the contact was just, you know, very rare and few between when I would see her.
And you were raised by?
My grandmother.
Grandmother.
Yeah, my mother's mother. I was raised by her. And that wasn't exactly the best place for me to be raised, but, you know, that's where I ended up. And that's where I blame my life in jail, you know, with my upbringing.
So just the general environment with the family, or knowing what your mother had done?
Well, it was basically no nurturing, no structure, no guidance, no anything. It was basically a dysfunctional environment that I was grown up in, and I continued that. When I got older, that's what I decided I was going to do, continue in that dysfunction.
Were you involved in gangs or
I was never involved in gangs, no, but immediately I started with drugs at the age of 13.
13.
Yeah, and I just kind of got set in that drugs and alcohol and never was able to come out of it.
Now, was that something that was done at home too?
No,
or were you...
it wasn't done at home. It was done, I ran away when I was 13 years old, and as soon as I ran away, that's when I got involved with drugs and alcohol. So it was just like something that you always have heard. I was raised by my grandmother telling me, you're gonna be just like your mom. You're gonna be just like your mom.
Oh.
So my mom's in prison.
Did you see the movie Precious?
No, I haven't.
I mean, not to minimize it, because yours is a real story, but it's the same kind of thing in that movie where her mother's, well, in this case, her mother actually is always putting her down and telling her, you're no good, you're this and you're that. And so you actually had your grandmother telling you that you were...
and so, you know, you get to a point where you believe that. But, you know, you have to get to that next point, and there has to be something or somebody that tells you that that's not the way it is, that's not who you are, and that's not how it has to be. And by the grace of God, that's when I ran into GOGI, and I was able to go into the GOGI campus while I was incarcerated.
How old were you the first time you went to jail?
The first time I went to jail, I was, I believe, in my early 30s.
Early 30s?
Yeah.
Okay, so not as a teen?
No, not as a teen.
Okay, so despite...
I skated. You know, I got away with a lot of things, until later in my years.
So what happened then when you were in your 30s? What brought that kind of thing back then if you actually didn't have...
The drugs.
The drugs.
The drugs and the alcohol, just wanting to stay numb.
Was it to get money for drugs then?
Usually, yes. That's what it always came down to. Usually that's what it came down to, yeah.
And so how did you meet Coach Mara then? What?
I was in Linwood facility, and they had been telling me about this program, GOGI, and I had kept saying I didn't want to be a part of it because I was still in that mode that I was stuck where I was and nothing was going to change it. I was already in that mentality that nothing was going to get better for me.
Couldn't be any different.
No, it wasn't going to get better. I was where I was, and it was probably going to continue to get worse. But by the grace of God, I was presented with this program at the facility, and I said, yes, okay, I'll go, I'll try it. And it changed my life.
You told me when we were talking on the phone the other day that actually when you were saying that people don't realize what a hold drugs can have on people, and that also that in a way you were kind of looking forward to going to jail because you wanted to break out, but you didn't know how to do it, and you felt that might actually help you.
I was stuck. I was so stuck on drugs, and I knew that what I was doing was wrong. I knew inside of me that it was wrong, and I had a 2-year-old daughter, okay, and I had her living with me, and I was doing things that I should not have been doing, having her in that environment. And I used to actually pray to the Lord, help me, God, because I can't do this by myself. You gotta help me. Well, I had a surveillance system hooked up in my house, and I saw the deputies coming when they were gonna raid my house. And you know what, actually, I took a deep breath and I said, thank you. I said, thank you, yes, because I saw them as my heroes. They rescued me. And I even saw that even further because I ended up in the GOGI campus. So God puts people in your path when you're ready.
Now, was this the first time, or was it the
last time.
fifth time? I see.
That's the last time.
And because it was the 5th time, you said you were actually facing prison that time?
Yes.
I see.
Yes.
And they took your daughter?
They took my daughter from me, yes. And when that was a slap in the face, and I knew that I wasn't going to go out like that. I knew that I was going to do whatever it took to change it. And by the grace of God, and with the help of Coach Taylor and the GOGI program and the deputies and everybody that's involved in this program, I've been able to do that with their support.
Well, you were hoping you would get help when you went in, and as it turned out, you did get help.
Yes.
So how did this program work, and what did they do for you?
Well, they teach you, they offer these tools to you, okay, and you can take them or you can leave them. If you're ready for it, you're going to take them and you're going to use them and you're going to read the book. And
There's a book they have for women and men. This is Women in Prison.
That's the women's book right there. And it's an easy read, and it's filled with so much information. I pick it up every day, even if it's for 5 minutes or half an hour, and I just flip through it and I'll read it, even though I've read it through.
Can you give an example of something?
Something that I was taught when I was in the GOGI campus was the boss of your brain. This is going to sound very ignorant, but I never really knew that you could actually be in charge of your own mind. I was just living my life with allowing things to happen to me and me reacting. I finally got a concept of, you know what, I do have control, and I am able to decide what I want to do. I don't have to react to every situation that comes my way. I can pick and choose, and that's what's really helped me and saved me, is being able to get the concept of being the boss of your brain. That's one of the tools that she teaches.
And so it's actually when you felt that you might...
That's when I started feeling, you know, just like doors opening, changing, taking place. We had coaches that would come in every Saturday, and they would sit with me and they would talk with me, and I would talk about things that I had never had the opportunity of talking about to anybody before regarding my childhood.
But you were pretty skeptical in the beginning?
I was very skeptical. I was, because I was at that point where nothing was going to help me. Nothing. You know, I had my mind made up.
How did she turn you around or make you think that it could help?
By telling me and helping me understand from the inside on my own that it wasn't the end, and that it was just really the beginning, and that I had to just grab a hold of these new ideas and start living them. And that's what I've been doing, and it's really been working.
So now at this point, you didn't go, this kept you out of prison, and you haven't had any problems since then?
No, sir, and I will not.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have you had any contact with your mother or grandmother? Or
They're both passed away now.
I'm sorry.
But I've learned through, actually another tool that we've learned through GOGI is forgiving and letting go. That was a big process that I experienced. You know, I had to let go of a lot of things I was hanging on to, and learning how to forgive some of the people in my life that hurt me really released me into a new freedom that I never knew was there.
Do you have any contact with your daughter?
Yes, I got her back.
You got her back?
Absolutely, I got her back. It wasn't going to happen like that, no.
And you don't want to let her go this time,
No,
right?
no, I have her back. Her name is Diamond. She's 4 years old now, and yeah, I got her back by the grace of God.
Well, thank you very much
Well,
for
thank
being
you.
courageous enough to come here today and share your story with us, and much success with you in this program.
Okay.
And you are one of their coaches now.
Yes, I am. Yay! I sure am, and excited about that.
Well, again, congratulations. And up next, we'll hear from Coach Mara Leigh Taylor about the GOGI program. We'll be right back. And we are back. Joining me now is Coach Mara Leigh Taylor, founder of the GOGI program. Great to have you here
I am
today,
so
Mara.
happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, that was, quite a story that Maria told us, and it was very nice of her to come here today and share it with us. But before I talk to you about how you worked with her, I just want to mention some statistics. 2.3 million men, women, and children in prisons in the U.S.
Federal, state, or jail.
2.3 million. 90% will go back to the communities eventually. But you say very few have learned anything except how to become better criminals?
Well, oftentimes when they're incarcerated, there's nothing to do except talk to your bunkie or your cellie. And what do you talk about is, why are you here? And how did you do that?
How do you do it?
And,
You get some tips.
yeah, so they get to be better criminals. So, and we haven't learned really that these are individuals who just need information. They need an option. And if we don't give them options, then all we're doing is breeding more and more criminals. That's why last year we had 2.2 million people behind bars. This year we have 2.3 million people. Next year we're going to have more. If we don't do something about teaching them different ways of thinking and being, we're just going to keep building bigger and bigger prisons.
More and more. And the recidivism rate, as they say, or the repeat rate
Right.
for offenders is what, about 80%?
About 80% will end up being rearrested within the first year.
Wow. And often, as Maria said, that drugs play a part in this?
Well, 80% of people who are arrested on a drug-related charge. So whether it's possession or selling or an addiction-driven burglary, such as in the case of Maria breaking into a house, if she was sober, she never would have broken into that house. But the need for drugs has caused her to say, well, I'll do anything for it, so I'll break into this house to get the stereo for the $20 that it's going to give me.
So how does a nice TV producer go from her comfy Hollywood world to working with inmates in federal prison? That was quite a change for you.
Yes, it was. My career actually was on camera, like hosting
you were
bodybuilding
on-
and fitness
oh.
events. So
Okay,
I would ESPN stuff and little commercials. And I segued to coaching actors, writers, producers, and directors. And I had quite a nice career teaching people how to get their careers on track. But I got really bored hearing about how, the Ferrari parked in the driveway, got the egg on it, and woe is me. And I just got a little tired of it. So I went back and got a psychology.
With a little more
I
meaning.
wanted something. I didn't know what I wanted, so I went back to school and went for psychology. And the teacher said, we're having a tour of a prison. Who wants a couple extra credit? And I decided to go, and from the minute I went in, I just knew I'd found my home.
Where did you go, by the way? Which prison did you
Terminal
tour?
Island Federal Prison for Men.
So that's a federal. Is that like a maximum security, or what
At
level?
the time, it was a medium, and I knew nothing about federal, state, maximum. I saw prisons on TV, and they made good backdrops, and that was about it.
The reason I'm asking is I interviewed a psychologist once who worked with the LA County Sheriff, and she was talking about things that would happen when they walked through the jail, like prisoners throwing things at them or calling them names and stuff.
Yes.
What was your impression when you went in this prison?
Well, when I walked in the prison, the door slammed behind me, and there was this eerie feeling like, oh, this is final. And then I looked out on the yard, and this beautiful federal prison had roses and these nicely dressed men walking from building to building carrying books. It almost looked like a college campus to me. So my first impression of a prison was, wow, this is a great opportunity for them to learn and to grow, and I can really help here. And it wasn't until later that I saw the dirty, grimy part.
But how did you turn it back into a positive thing where you decided that,
Oh,
you
it's
really
always
can
been
help?
positive,
Oh.
because every experience I've ever had going into any prison or any jail or any setting of incarceration has always been hugely positive. Humans want to be good. They want to contribute. They want to be important in their communities. They just don't know how. But when you look at somebody and you can see past their flaws or past their tattoos or, past all those things that they have accumulated along the way or past the abuse, and you can see that they can be strong contributors to our community, well, they brighten up.
So where did you actually first start working with people? What prison?
At the federal
There
level.
was that one.
And with the men.
Okay.
And the class started, the first class was 6 guys. And 3 of them didn't speak English. They were Hispanic. I think they wanted something to do. And so I just started talking about the brain and relaxation. And then the next week it was 12, then the next week 24, then 36. Then they had to give us a bigger room. We got up to about 300 guys showing up every Wednesday at noon in the chapel for lessons on how to be the boss of your brain, or how to belly breathe, or positive thoughts and words and actions. Things that you...
What kind of, I'm sorry.
Yeah, things that you and I take for granted, but these are things that these individuals never were taught. They were abandoned by parents. Parents were drugged, they were drugged. They never learned that a positive thought and a positive word and a positive action is important.
Maria said it was burglary in her
Yes.
case. What have these guys done in general?
Well, at the federal level, it means that they have committed a federal offense, which usually means that they've taken a bag of dope from one state to the next.
So usually drug-related again.
Yeah, drug-related again, or bank robberies. We had bank robbers in there, or postal crime. Anything with regard to the federal government is it.
So you're sitting down with someone who's gone postal or was
Yes,
robbing
yes.
banks. So what do you
Yes.
do when we're sitting down with a bank robber? How do you?
Well, bank robbers are very unique because they love the adrenaline rush. And whereas drug dealers like more of the camaraderie and the bling bling that goes along with it, a bank robber really has a very unique personality. He likes to be in charge. He likes that adrenaline rush. And about every 7 years he gets to do it, because every 7 years he gets caught, he ends up doing 7 years.
Gets back out, it goes
yes,
right
yes.
back in. Huh? Wow.
So, you know, one guy said, "Oh, I just love how it feels." And I said, "How's that working for you?" And he said, "Well, every 7 years it works real well."
It's like waiting in line for the roller coaster, and you know, like
Yes,
you wait
yes.
an hour and you ride it for 60 seconds, and then you.
That's about
But
what it
yeah,
is. Yeah. So we have to break that mentality.
Now, in Maria's case, how did you start working with her? And
Well, we have an experimental campus in the women's jail, and it's 24 women, and we are empowering them to make good decisions on their own. In fact, they actually contributed to this book. There's a lot of their writing and poetry, and I just said, okay, I think you guys are wonderful, and I think you need to do something about it. And so they created a campus, a school, they elected presidents, they had rules, they created art, poetries.
And now you have a book for women and a book for men.
Yes, the book for men was related to the work I did with the federal men prisoners.
Is there a big difference in the way you approach male and female prisoners?
No, we're all the same. Yeah. Well, the prisoners are different. Men tend to be a little more standoffish, and they, you know, are little. They sit with their arms crossed a lot, and women tend to be much more needy and much more emotional.
Now, something people may wonder is, you know, does this really work? I mean, we had a success story with Maria, but
Right.
people may wonder, you know, with rehab or
Right.
what? Can you tell us what the recidivism rate is with the people you've worked with? Does it decrease from
A lot.
a lot?
Yeah, a lot. We've had 250 women go through our program. The first year statistic, I can't even tell you what it is because you won't believe it. It's far below 20%.
Wow.
Base-
Versus 80% in
80%,
general.
80%. When you empower somebody, when you give them simple tools for making positive decisions, and then when you lift up the phone and call them once a week, it's amazing. Most people want to be good.
Now, how many people, Maria, as we said, as a coach, people actually then become a part of this program and a...
Oh, all of them. In fact, the girls call themselves GOGI girls. So yes, it's a sorority.
They can be a support group for each other then.
Also,
too.
and it's an alternative gang. So rather than going home to a gang culture, the girls are going home saying, you know what, I'm a GOGI girl now. And it's an
Positive
alternative
influences.
culture for them.
Well, keep up the great work.
Thank
It's
you,
just
thank you.
outstanding, and I love the way she's turned it around and the way you're helping them turn around.
But we're
so.
going to have to get you in the jail to talk with the women.
Oh, don't
We'll
get
let
me-
you out, I
not
promise.
in the jail, but maybe visit the jail.
Yes, yes,
Get me
yes.
locked up. I'll have to choose my crime. I don't know.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you very much,
Oh,
Coach
my
Mara Leigh
pleasure.
Taylor. And
Thank
yes,
you.
But please do come back, and I'd love to find out more about it. So we'll talk afterwards. So
Wonderful. Thank you.
we'll be right back. And we are back. Joining me now is Stephanie Vlahov, author of The Active Creative Child. Great to have you back again today, Stephanie.
Thank you.
So, you know, I don't think ADD and ADHD is something you really heard about much when I was growing up, but these days you hear about it a lot.
Yes.
What exactly is ADD and ADHD?
It is a neurological condition that is real. I'm not an MD, so I don't profess to be. However, it's tremendously overdiagnosed. It's a disorder having to do with impulse control and hyperactivity.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, a lot of us joke around and say, oh, I'm ADD or something.
Right.
But you do hear that a lot. So there is a tendency to overdiagnose it among children.
Absolutely. This is something that I experienced with my own son, who teachers loved, but they also probably wanted to send him out of the room a lot of the time because he was driving them crazy.
And they literally wanted to medicate him? Or often in these cases they want to medicate the kids?
Absolutely. And what you hear is teachers suggesting it. I've even heard stories about people telling me that schools have told them that if you don't medicate your child, they're going to have to leave, which I think is pretty inappropriate.
Well, and it reminds me of somebody, actually, a case of abuse. Or when I was in school, college, someone was in the medical school was telling me that one of the nurses at night would medicate the patient so they wouldn't bug her. But is that a way that you can just kind of have them go away, just medicate them and shut them up so you don't have to deal with active, rambunctious kids?
It's control. And as I wrote about in my book, if I really shopped around for a pediatrician, I could have easily gotten that diagnosis for our son. My pediatrician said, and by the way, a doctor is the only one that could diagnose this, not a school, not a teacher. Your son's fine. He's just highly extroverted and very creative. But if you shop around enough, you can get the diagnosis.
What do you think the dividing line is? I mean, you say active, creative, so you don't think he was exactly ADD or ADHD. You do think there is such a condition, but it wasn't him.
Yes. I think the dividing line is really in a state of flux. I don't think that the medical community, what I hear is there is no specific diagnostic test other than observation for a diagnosis. So I think it's a bit of a slippery slope. Like I said, I think in his case, if I had a physician with a different orientation, I probably could have gotten the diagnosis very easily.
So what you had then was an active, rambunctious kid who was out there getting into everything and doing everything?
Yes, and highly creative from birth. He would, for example, 1 year in kindergarten, he insisted that he go to school dressed up every day as Alfalfa from the Little Rascals. So we'd have to get up an hour early in the morning so he could take his hair and put it in the peak. And he was acting out the Little Rascals, and he was just,
I gotta start doing that for the show. That's
this was something that he had to do. He wanted to act out book reports instead of write them. We tried Little League with him, and he's not at all a sports person, but he would be singing out in the field instead of catching balls. So it's pretty apparent from a very early age that theater, the theater arts world was pretty much his calling.
Well, we were talking the other day on the phone before the interview, and actually I just spent the past couple of days covering some events for the Creative Coalition, which is all about promoting arts and education and that sort of thing. But first of all, actually a lot of parents don't necessarily instill that in their kids, or may have a problem with it, especially if it's guys.
Yes, there's still a bit of a reluctance to fully embrace the arts as far as boys are concerned. It's still a bit novel for many people, especially fathers. Oh, my son's going to play baseball or football. Well, not really, not if that's not their interest. And it's important to articulate to your child that you accept, what their interest is, if it's made as evident as it was made to me at his young age.
Well, it's interesting too how many of these working successful actors were talking about the fact, though, that besides the artistic side, and even some athletes turned actors, that it gave them discipline. That there were, a lot of things they got out of it, and one of them was just basic discipline.
Yes. The problem with a child who is skilled and who has a lot of creative energy is they get a lot of accolades for that if it's channeled correctly. They get a lot of leads in school plays, they get a lot of attention from adults. The flip side of that could be narcissism. So it's
they want the spotlight, the spotlight.
Exactly, and it's important for them to realize that, we think you're the center of the universe as your family, but you know what? The world doesn't
revolve around you.
No.
Which is a lesson for later in life.
Exactly, and you have to learn that at a young age. It's a lot easier than when you're 30.
So how do you deal with the schools?
That's a challenge because schools very much teach to the test. It's a very bureaucratic system, funding, limited as it is based oftentimes on test scores and rote memorization. So when you have a kid who barrels into a class and, wants to paint the sky purple instead of blue, teachers don't often know what to do with them. You have to advocate, be involved, communicate with your teachers, know your rights. That would be the best thing, I would say.
Be a concerned parent with their education. That's always a good thing, which
Yes.
not everyone these days. Now, what about at home? You were saying again, the world doesn't revolve about them.
Right.
On the one hand, you want to be supportive and nurturing, but you don't let them take over the house.
No, not at all. We have two sons, and in Alex's case, we found it important to give him his space to create. We kept a bin of dress-up clothes from Halloween. That he could go off and do his pretend imaginary play. Imaginary play is very important to these types of children, and it's very important to respect their need to be alone to do that. While they're involved in their own play, you then are able to nurture your other child or children and whatever it is they want to do.
And you do say that if parents get a diagnosis, or at least if the school is pushing in that direction, they should get a second opinion unless they're just convinced that their kid is ADD or ADHD.
Yes. Unfortunately, a lot of parents are very sort of cowed by the bureaucracy of the authority figure of the school. And, the teacher said we have to put little Joey on medication. Well, no, question that. A teacher is not a physician. Question it. Get proper medical help. What's alarming to me is seeing more and more of an influx of educational institutions acting in a diagnostic way, which is all about, to me, control, and all about, some suggest funding too, because
to keep the money flowing
you get different levels of funding for special needs kids, and that's kind of a hot topic, but it's one that's been certainly suggested.
Well, we're almost out of time, but our
Yes.
final minute, I do want to mention your son is now in acting school.
Yes, he's in an acting conservatory. Proud to say he's one of 4 Americans that was accepted, and
This is in London?
this is in London, and he's thriving absolutely in his field, and we're real proud of him that this ball of energy person went in a positive direction as opposed to a negative one.
So instead of medicating him, he went into acting and is in drama school.
Right. Yeah, thus far.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank
Stephanie
you.
Vlahov, author
Yes.
of The Active Creative Child. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.